Hello everyone, welcome back to GGN. This is part 2 for this news report today for Friday, February 22nd, 2013. I'm Darko. My website is ggnonline.com, and on YouTube my channels are ddarko2012 and ddarko2013. The links for these should be in YouTube's video description. And I think most of you are aware of the increase in minimum wage, federal minimum wage. So there's this article out there right now, 40% of Americans now make less than 1968 minimum wage. It says you may have seen the charts like the one to the right from the Economic Policy Institute showing how working people's wages stop going up along with productivity gains. This means the gains went somewhere else. See if you can guess who got them. So it says hint is the 1%. This is one driver of the terrible income and wealth inequality. This break off of wages from productivity growth is partly the result of trade agreements that pit Americans against exploited workers and non-democracies. This weakened the bargaining power of unions, moved factories and industries out of the country, devastated the entire regions of our country, and gave the giant multinational corporations, Wall Street, and billionaires the leverage they needed. Economist Dean Baker describes this in a minimum wage. Who decided workers should fall behind? Quote, if the minimum wage had risen in step with productivity growth since 1968, it would be over $16.50 an hour today. That is higher than the hourly wages earned by 40% of men and half of women. To put this in even another way, it says the average American's living standard would be much, much higher today if wages had not decoupled from productivity gains, with the gains all going to the 1% instead of being shared by workers. If wages had kept pace, we wouldn't feel the terrible squeeze that everyone in the middle class is feeling. Of course, I've covered this before in different articles about how retailers, Walmart in particular, are feeling this, and just people in general, quote, consumers and citizens are feeling with these payroll taxes. So retailers are saying payroll tax hit is going to hurt. Nearly half of consumers say they'll spend less. So the retailers are preparing for customers with less cash in their pockets, thanks in part to the newly restored payroll tax. Rising gas prices aren't helping either. Some 45% of consumers plan to spend less in the face of 2% lower take-home pay. So it says companies like Walmart and Kraft are trumpeting less expensive items while Burger King cuts the price of a Whopper Jr. So this is from the Wall Street Journal. It says that gas climbed 50 cents per gallon over the past month. It says with a lower income customer base, Walmart serves as a leading indicator of consumer habits. There you go, Walmart. Wally World. It says, but others are more positive about spending after the tax change. Once people start to accept it as the new normal, they'll go back to their normal spending patterns. Shop. Over 60s told to go back to university and retrain to keep jobs. So I just covered an article yesterday that says that a bachelor's degree isn't even enough to be a file clerk, right? You got to have, high school diploma is like nothing, spending all that money to get a college degree, it's like a high school diploma. So it says older workers should go back to university to retrain, according to the Minister for Higher Education. So this is commenting on the expectation that people will be working for longer before the retirement. Mr. Willett said older workers who take courses to keep their skills up to date would be more likely to keep their jobs. By 2028, the state pension age is to rise to 67, and by 2033, 1 in 4 people will be older than 65. And it's so funny because they just tell us that we're living older, we're living longer, and I just covered that in the last week too, which is they're not. So I mean, they're going to keep raising the retirement age, and people are going to be dying earlier, so they're not going to be able to collect it. They're going to die before they even collect it, and that's exactly what they want. So we were talking about, we started up here talking about what has happened to the city, or to the country, devastated entire regions of our country. One in particular, of course, is Detroit, most miserable city in the United States, says Forbes. They've topped the Forbes list of the most miserable cities in the U.S. amid high unemployment and financial crisis in the city. Interesting, Flint, Michigan, Rockford, Illinois, and Chicago in Illinois, and Modesto, California followed Detroit in the list. They compiled the list by ranking cities based on factors including crime rates, foreclosures, taxes, home prices, commute times, weather, and decreasing populations. I'll say one thing about Chicago. They sure do get sprayed a lot. I mean, I've been here for about almost 2 months, and I think I've seen the sun out for like a half a day, maybe 2 days. The commute definitely sucks. There's cars everywhere. I think that's pretty obvious. The taxes, like I just was talking about, family members saying that their taxes, go up to about, $3,500 from $1,000 just in the last 6 years. And that's just for 6 months, I think. Chi-Town also was known for just recently, breaking records for the, homicide rate. They broke that for 2012. But like I mentioned before, check out that documentary if you can called Tropia. It gives you kind of an inside look at what's going on over there. It's just fields, just empty fields, and there's people that still don't want to move, and the city's trying to get people, they're trying to force people out of their homes and get them in like a more centralized location, which is pretty typical, That's how governments usually work. They don't want people sprawled out, separated in these little, overgrown villages or communities or neighborhoods. In there, they actually talked about actually going back to like farms and stuff, which would be actually a pretty good idea if they did stuff like that. But the only problem is that it's going to be headed up by the government, which means it's going to be completely waste of money, and it's not going to be practical, right? They could, if they really wanted to, they just let these people. They would actually just provide subsistence or subsidies so that they could have training and just limited supplies to be able to make their own little gardens or something like that. But then they want to turn it into some kind of cheesy utopia, public. This is the public garden, a public farm. Look how green we are. We're so green. They're doing it more for the image than the actual survival of the people there. Hong Kong's human battery hens. Claustrophobic images show how slum families squeeze their lives into the tiniest apartment. So this is the other side of what we were talking about. This break-off of wages from productivity growth is partly the result of trade agreements that pit Americans against exploited workers and non-democracies. So let's see how it looks like. Bird's-eye images released by a social group documenting plight of poorest and one of world's richest cities. So they say lurking beneath this prosperity is great inequality and a forgotten group of poor people. So it goes here, it's one of the most densely populated areas. So I'll just kind of scroll through here. You can go and check them out. But I mean, it's insane. Look at that, like a bunk bed and stuff. Actually, you gotta like take a minute just to kind of sit there and look at it to actually see what's going on in there. It's so tight. I mean, there's no room for anything. I mean, everybody just stacks everything up real high. And this guy, it was like you don't even have a pillow. But man, it's just. I mean, it's pretty bad. And then when you go down, you can see the buildings from afar. Here you go, right here. So I would imagine these are the upper crust making better money, and then you kind of see the shanty towns over here. Then of course you got the air conditioners that look like they're like from the 50s. That God only knows if they actually fall out and hit somebody on the head. Walmart employee hit with felony for snacking on store Oreos. So I've worked in the grocery world a couple times, and I hated it. There's so much waste in the retail industry when it comes to that stuff. It's a complete waste. Even at working at like gas stations where they'll have food there, and instead of giving it to people or letting the workers take it home, they just throw it out. I had to throw out food. It was like the most messed up thing ever. And it's like everything else, liability. It's always about liability. And they just take it to the extremes, right? They're afraid someone that doesn't have any money is going to sue them, some homeless dude or something. And this is the same thing. They take it to the extreme. This person, she's been working there for like 20 years or something. A Walmart employee in Indiana has been charged with a felony theft after she was caught munching Oreos filled from the store's shelves. So they said that she's been doing it for years, and she admitted to it. So, and this is a Walmart employee too. So, I mean, the thing is these workers, I mean, we're debt slaves. We just work every day, work for the complexes, and Walmart is one of the biggest complexes. So, and look at the people who own the company in that, the Waltons and that. They're freaking multi-million, probably billionaires. I'm not saying this is justified, but Walmart said, "We have high standards on how we conduct business in our stores and high expectations for all our associates. This includes acting with honesty, integrity, and following company policies and guidelines." That's kind of like when they had the kindergartners that went to go sing they were going out there like sing the national anthem or something like that, grade school kids, and they called the cops on them. So, or like these people that are living in these little shanty towns, right? These are all people that work for Walmart. Gun companies refuse sales to state governments with strict gun laws. So that's pretty interesting. 6 gun companies have announced plans to stop selling any of their products to any government agency in states that severely limit the rights of private gun ownership. They're LaRue Tactical, Olympic Arms, Extreme Firepower Incorporated, Templar Custom, and York Arms, and Cheaper Than Dirt. I've heard of that one before. Aaron Swartz files reveal how FBI tracked internet activists. So it goes on here and shows the extent to the agency's investigation into them. So they published, this is the blogger that published the once classified FBI files that show how the agency tracked and collected information on the internet activist Aaron Swartz, who supposedly killed himself in January at age 26, had requested the files. And of course, they were redacted. So they were assessing the public access to court electronic record documents. So in pursuit of their investigation, the FBI collected his personal information and was surveilling an Illinois address where he had his IP address registered. Then NHS defends controversial evidence to success pupil survey after parents' fury. Pretty crazy stuff. They've defended NHS, that is, a controversial survey asking children as young as 9 about drug taking and knife carrying. So it goes on, it says that it's provoked a fury among parents, who I don't even know why they're even shocked or surprised these days, aggrieved by the nature and tone of the questions the youngsters were asked to fill in. 24-page survey quizzed them about whether they have attended school drunk, on drugs, or high, and had numerous questions about heroin, cocaine, LSD, and former legal highs. Questionnaire for 14 to 16-year-olds also asked about their sexual habits. English pupils 2 years behind Chinese in math by age of 16. Remember, we were just talking about how the study that was being done in that, saying that a professor was saying that humans were actually becoming less intelligent. That if someone was from, say, ancient Greece was alive today, they would basically be one of the smartest people in the world. English children are on par with those in Taiwan and Hong Kong, age 10, but the cleverest are 2 years behind when they reach the age of 16. So it goes on, it says new findings also show pupils make less progress than children in Scotland, Lithuania, Russia, Norway, Singapore, and Australia. Mother's anguish after police admit they kept her dead son's brain in storage for 13 years. The brain was held at Southampton General Hospital after he died just at 2 days old. The police officers knocked on her door totally out of the blue with the news. Son died of a heart defect, and basically it says that they don't know why, or they were never told that they actually had held the brain or retained it. It says here it comes after a BBC investigation found body parts from nearly 90 children were kept by police, often without informing parents. Finishing up here, last couple articles for you. Puerto Rico Supreme Court upholds gay adoption ban. They've narrowly voted to uphold a law banning gay couples from adopting children. So a majority of judges upheld the constitutionality of a law specifying that a family includes a mother and father because that is, what does it say? That is best for a child's dignity and well-being. We have meteor threat in Russia wasn't expected for another 2,000 years, says the emergency minister. So it goes on and says that we thought that humanity would not have to face such an attack for another couple of thousands of years, but the opposite happened and Russia was hit with a large-scale natural emergency. Natural emergency. Well, I don't know. I guess we'll never know. What happened in Russia was unique. It says people saw the flash, then a strong shockwave that followed. Yeah, they only found fragments. What was it, like a couple millimeters wide? That's the only fragments that they found. The thing to remember is he says North America, Europe, and Russia have certain systems, but they can only track large meteors. Talking about defense, space weapons that we're talking about. It says human mission to Mars may be planned for 2018. Global warming strikes again. In the UK, it's so cold that the statues are freezing. And there's a picture is considering European beef ban over horse meat scandal. Consumers have switched to veggie meals over the thing. Maybe that was the point. And Chavez is supposedly on a breathing tube. Thank you.